This is a CBC podcast.
Ani Nejayan, how are you?
Gonalonkwa, which is I love you.
Agamemok, keep going.
Diane today for Don't Touch.
This is First Words, an Indigenous language podcast by Unreserved.
Yat-e, which is a greeting.
Miigwech, which means thank you.
Kiso Kyukiet Hugaklik Malten Hu Ini Akiskanuknik. That means good afternoon. My name is Martina and I'm from Windermere. Growing up, I didn't hear very much Ktunaxa language around the house. It was mostly just a few words here and there, like commands mostly. For example, my mom and my grandma would both say things like Tlana, come here, Wustashlan, hurry up. Yua, go away, suksik, you're picky, that kind of stuff. But I never heard full sentences being spoken around the house, and it was like a very short list of words. The Ktunaxa language is critically endangered. It makes me feel more connected to my culture, and I also think that it's my responsibility to learn the language because I'm not totally sure the number of fluent language speakers today. I know at the beginning of 2007 there was 30 fluent speakers left, and they were all elders. So now today that number is much lower because our elders have been passing away, and with them the language has been going with them and the culture as well. And so it's a very time-sensitive issue right now, and I feel like it is my responsibility to take on that initiative to learn Ktunaxa, because I feel like many of our elders are, despite the fact that they may be fluent speakers still, it's a very tiresome job for them to have to be putting in all the work to teach the language when, you know, they are tired. They maybe don't have the energy to be teaching everybody the language. I think it's our responsibility to take it on ourselves to seek out the language ourselves and to make that effort ourselves. There are more language learners today than there were at that time. I think it's really looking up, but the number of actual fluent speakers today is much lower than it was. I have felt afraid to make mistakes in the past with regards to language learning, and I didn't actually take up this language learning project until a year ago. And before that, it was always in the back of my mind that I wanted to learn Ktunaxa, but I was afraid because it's a very different language than English is. It's a language isolate. There is no other languages like it in the world. And so the syntax and structure is very different from English. And it's just a very intimidating language when you don't have the foundation to learn from. I have a 2-year-old daughter. Her name's Ava. She's here with me in Vancouver, and I've been trying to teach her Ktunaxa while I'm learning. It's been a bit of a challenge because she's growing a lot faster than I'm learning Ktunaxa. So it's been a challenge to keep up with her in that respect because I'm in school most of my time, so I'm out of the house and her grandparents are looking after her. So when I come home, I want to be able to spend time with her, but I also want to be teaching her Ktunaxa in that time that I'm spending time with her. So it's a challenge, like balancing how much I am learning Ktunaxa while teaching her Ktunaxa rather than just like spending time with her in general. Because I notice that most of the learning that I'm doing is on my phone through a Ktunaxa language app. But at the same time, I realize that I'm basically one of those parents who's just like looking at my phone the entire time that I'm hanging out with her. So it's a bit of a struggle to know if I'm like, if it's really benefiting my relationship with her right now when I should just be with her in the moment. I decided to choose a list of words that's related to language learning, since that's what we're talking about. So I chose Ktunaxa, which means to know how to speak a language. Ktunaxa, which means to know a different language. Ktunaxa, speak Ktunaxa. And Huts akukini kuts hitscha Ktunaxa. I am going to try to speak Ktunaxa. I really think that it needs to be offered to kids in elementary school and high school to have that time while they're in school to be learning their language, whether it's like a class dedicated to learning their specific language for Indigenous students only, or for everybody who's on that traditional territory to be responsible for learning the traditional language of that territory. Because I think that with the history of colonialism and with the residential school system telling us that we're not allowed to speak our language, I think that needs to be corrected in the education system, and that it's not simply Indigenous people's responsibility to do that on their own time, because I'm very critical of the society that we live in and the social structures with capitalism taking up all of our 40-hour work weeks to be children want to learn their language. I know I did when I was a child, but it wasn't really offered to me to that extent that we learn like French or English when we're in school, and I think that there's a huge opportunity for it to be offered. Hi, I'm Martina Shovar, and these are the words that I'd like you to learn today. Ktunaxa, to know how to speak a language. Ktunaxa, to know a different language. Ktunaxa, speak Ktunaxa. And Huts akukini kuts Ktunaxa, I am going to try to speak Ktunaxa.
For more CBC podcasts, go to cbc.ca/podcasts.